since doing this channel, I've said a number of sayings quite a couple of times, but there's two that regular viewers, or at least, people who watched me sort of when Brexit first happened, will know two I will often say and are my sort of go-to phrases whenever we talk or discuss about, shall we say, Brexiteers in general. The first of all is, this is not the Brexit that we voted for. This is the classic one where Brexiteers feel this isn't the Brexit we wanted. We're not getting the Brexit we wanted. What is going on? This isn't what we voted for. But as we've said many times, the Leave campaign did not push for this hard a Brexit. There was only Patrick Minford who dared to push publicly for this kind of Brexit, and he was kept at arm's length away from the Leave campaign. He was only ever brought in a few times, but he did not, shall we say, probably do well, and I think was kept very, very far away because they wanted to attract as many people as they could to the Leave campaign. So they had to run a broad, big church campaign while actually not telling people this is actually the kind of Brexit we want to do. The second, of course, is when Brexit meets reality, reality will always win. And as such is the case when we come to talking about regulations. Boris Johnson and co continuously talk about, we're going to get rid of these regulations. We're going to diverge away from the EU. We're going to make things so much more better. But in 6 years, or depending, of course, where you go from a referendum or when we actually, quote, got Brexit done, Boris Johnson and co haven't diverged. So today we're going to talk a bit about bicycle theory. But before we get talking into what bicycle theory is and how it's sort of quite interesting and certainly does sort of apply to the Brexiteers overall, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, there is the YouTube subscription button as well, where you hit that and you get all sorts of badges, emojis, and whatnots as well that help support the channel as well. So let's get into this then. What is bicycle theory, I hear you say? Is this something to do with China coming to dump a load of cheap bicycles in the UK? As well, that may be a certain, shall we say, Brexit issue probably coming soon, which I'm sure Brompton, the folding bicycle company that supported Brexit, will be aghast that Boris Johnson is going to let that happen. No, bicycle theory has nothing to do with that situation. So what bicycle theory essentially is you are a politician. You want to keep your momentum going. You've got to keep your idea, your project alive for as long as possible. This is what happens in most revolutions. Because sooner or later, if you remove, shall we say, your king from power or whatever type of goal your revolution is, very quickly you've got to shift from campaigning to actually doing and implementing your revolution. And very often, that's sort of the boring part of, revolutions. We talk obviously about sort of, the English Civil War, its battles, but we never talk about the after effects, what Parliament in those 6 years went on to do with its experiment, with Britain's experiment in republicanism, what they went on to do before essentially, Cromwell basically took over. Or, we don't talk about what the French sort of government did, apart from very much all of its, shall we say, head lopping off. Those aren't sort of the interesting, those are the interesting parts of revolutions that we sort of talk about. But that is part of the bicycle pushing. Reason why we're having so many battles with the European Convention on Human Rights even though it has nothing to do with the EU, is all part of the bicycle pushing, because Brexiteers are so desperate to start doing this diverging. But even the Treasury knows it, the Office of Budget Responsibility knows it, even economists know full well that if we start diverging, the benefits of the so-called divergence are not going to be, shall we say, worth the gains. And even we're at a stage where Brexit is already causing some very significant economic problems, the last thing you want to do is exacerbate those economic problems even more. And of course, Brexit has become more than just like the UK leaving the EU. It has now come to be sold as the UK should become this small state, low tax country. But again, that's not what people in 2016 were sold. And that is what a lot of these Brexiteers, those free market fundamentalists, the libertarians currently in control of the Conservative Party, desperately want. That's why they're so upset with Boris Johnson. Why haven't you diverged? Why haven't you lowered taxes? But instead, Boris Johnson, when we hear these people talking about him, gets sold as a big statist, big tax guy. And certainly under COVID, Boris Johnson was allowed to get away with, taxes and keeping regulations. But over time, obviously, those pushing to get rid of COVID regulations, guess who they were? They were all predominantly Brexiteers who wanted to move away from that high tax, high regulation state to move to a more small one. But again, that is not what was offered at the referendum in 2016. But even now, with David Davis, of all people, coming out and saying that this is a Remainers Brexit, go back to 2016 and tell a Brexiteer or a Eurosceptic, as they were even further back then, that this is Boris Johnson's Brexit. This is what he is selling to you. This would go far, far beyond their wildest dreams of what they thought they could achieve. But still today, bicycle keeps on pedaling, because if we stop pedaling and we start going from that non-campaign mode to actually having to do policy and actually implement the policy, well, that's sort of boring. That's why we're seeing so much, bicycle pedaling, pumping away against the European Convention on Human Rights, even though it's not an EU institution. This comes back to revolutions eat their own children. And there is a strong connection now starting to be felt that the cost of living crisis, and a part of why we are suffering so badly, which is again partly true, is because of Brexit. And they are worried now that if we stop pedaling, or if Boris Johnson or they stop pedaling, then the bicycle that they are on will just disintegrate. And we'll end up backsliding back into like either the customs union, single market, or the dreaded Norway option, which they were all so very happy to talk about in 2016 as being the standard, that the direction we should be going. But of course, that's not what happened. Unfortunately, like many revolutions, the extremists take over, and they are now at the point where they actually have to start delivering on their promises. But as we discussed earlier, the Economist, the Treasury, the Office of Budget Responsibility has basically laid it out. Look, if you start diverging, you're going to cause even more economic harm and problems. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel that way, as well as the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the YouTube subscription button as well, where you get all little like bells and whistles and whatnots. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.